The colony rested on the far edge of human space. It was a quiet place most of the time, filled with miners, traders, and farmers who wanted distance from the crowded core worlds. On the edge of the settlement sat a small workshop. The sign above it was worn down, but everyone knew who worked there. The place belonged to Tom, a human mechanic who could fix almost anything. If a mining drill broke, he fixed it. If a cargo ship's engine failed, he found a way to repair it. He was not rich, nor famous, but he was steady. People trusted his hands and his calm way of speaking. That evening the sky was painted in orange light from the setting sun. Tom was bent over a broken power core, his hands black with grease. The workshop was quiet except for the hum of tools. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The walls of the workshop shook and loose tools rattled on their shelves. Tom froze. He had felt engines land before, but this was no ship. It was heavier, more alive. He stepped outside, wiping his hands on a rag. The colony square was nearly empty, but he could hear voices shouting. People ran indoors, slamming doors shut. The reason became clear when a shadow passed over him. Something large moved in the sky, wings spread wide, scales glinting in the dim light. It was a dragon. Not the mythical kind from old Earth stories, but one of the alien dragon species known to roam wild planets. This one was smaller, no larger than a transport skimmer. It flapped awkwardly, almost crashing as it landed near his workshop. Tom's first thought was to run like everyone else. Then he saw her. The dragon was not alone. A tiny figure stumbled from her side, no bigger than a child. The small one's scales were softer, not yet hardened, and her wings barely strong enough to carry her. She looked around with bright, worried eyes and spotted Tom. Without fear she hurried forward, tugging something behind her. Only then did Tom notice the other shape. A massive dragon lay sprawled on the ground behind the hatchling. Her scales were darker, her body scarred, and her chest rose and fell with heavy, uneven breaths. Her eyes burned with feral fire, and a low growl rumbled from her throat. The hatchling pulled at her mother with all her strength, but the great dragon hardly moved. Desperate, the little one turned to Tom. Her voice cracked in broken human words, the kind picked up from overheard trade talk. "Help, mother, please," Tom blinked. The request did not sound like a trick. He had seen dragons before, but always at a distance. People feared them, avoided them, or tried to hunt them for their rare biotech-fused scales. Yet here one stood before him, pleading. The mother shifted, her wings twitching. She lifted her head, baring sharp teeth, and let out a sound that made the air shake. It was a warning, a promise of violence if he came too close. Tom's legs wanted to turn and run, but he stayed where he was. The hatchling stepped in front of him as if shielding him from her own mother. She spread her little wings wide and shouted again. "No hurt. Fix. You fix." Tom's hand tightened around the rag in his palm. He had fixed broken machines, patched failing engines, even mended damaged colony walls after storms. But this was no engine. This was a living creature with alien parts fused to her body. Still, the look in the hatchling's eyes was not something he could ignore. Around him, shutters slammed and doors locked. The rest of the colony wanted nothing to do with what was happening. He heard the colony leader shouting from a distance, telling him to back away, to let the beasts leave. But Tom did not move. Slowly, carefully, he stepped closer. The mother's growl deepened, but the hatchling touched her snout and whispered in her own tongue. The mother's gaze fixed on Tom, filled with rage and pain, yet she did not strike. Tom crouched, keeping his hands open and empty to show he meant no harm. His eyes scanned the mother's body. Her scales were cracked where strange metal implants glowed faintly. The lines of energy across them flickered, sparking dangerously. He had seen tech like this before, ripped from alien wreckage. It was unstable, dangerous, and could overload at any moment. The hatchling tugged at his sleeve. "You fix. You help." Tom let out a slow breath. He did not know if he could help, but he knew one thing: he could not walk away. "I will try," he said softly. The words were simple, but the hatchling's eyes lit up with hope. The mother dragon let out a rumbling snort, her gaze never leaving him. Her body trembled with pain and fury, yet she allowed him to draw near. The ground was scorched where she had fallen. Her blood was dark and thick, mixed with strange glowing particles. The implants pulsed, each beat like a ticking clock. Tom reached out and placed his hand near one, feeling the heat radiate. His mind raced with possibilities. He would need tools, he would need calm, and above all he would need courage. Behind him, the colony leader shouted again, ordering him to leave them. Tom ignored it. For the first time, he saw not monsters, but beings desperate for help. The hatchling trusted him, and that trust mattered. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the ground. Tom straightened, meeting the hatchling's eyes. "All right," he said. "Bring her inside." The hatchling nodded quickly, relief flooding her face. She tugged at her mother again, and the great dragon shifted with effort, dragging herself a little closer to the workshop. Her growls filled the air, but she obeyed her child's urging. The rest of the colony watched from behind closed doors, whispering in fear. But Tom stood tall, holding the door open as the dragons approached. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing clearly: he was the only human here who would not run. Inside the workshop, the smell of oil and metal mixed with a new scent: hot scales, strange blood, and the faint crackle of alien energy. Tom had repaired machines for years, but never before had he brought a living creature like this into his space. The little hatchling guided her mother through the wide doorway, though the larger dragon had to crouch low and push with effort. Her body barely fit inside, her wings scraping against the walls, but at last she collapsed on the reinforced floor, shaking the ground as she landed. The mother's growl rumbled through the room, low and dangerous. She did not trust this place, nor the human standing so close. Tom kept his movements calm, picking up a lamp and setting it near her wounds so he could see better. He spoke softly, though he knew she might not understand. "It's all right. I need to look. I won't harm you." The hatchling stayed at her mother's side, placing her small claws gently on the dark scales. Her eyes moved between Tom and her mother, as if translating the trust she felt into comfort for the larger dragon. Every time the mother shifted or bared her teeth, the hatchling whispered in her alien tongue, calming her with a tone only family could use. Tom crouched beside the wound. His eyes narrowed. The dragon's scales were split apart where thick metal implants were fused deep into her body. Wires, or something very close to wires, ran under the skin and pulsed with faint blue light. The glow was unsteady, flickering like a lantern about to go out. He knew unstable tech when he saw it. If these implants failed completely, the energy might explode. He touched the surface lightly, not yet daring to use tools. Heat burned against his hand, and the pulse of energy quickened as if reacting to him. The mother dragon tensed, lifting her head, teeth ready. The hatchling hissed gently and pressed her snout against her mother's. Slowly, the great beast lowered her head again, though her eyes never left Tom. The hatchling looked up at him. "Fix. Please." Tom sat back for a moment, wiping sweat from his forehead. His mind spun. He had repaired unstable power cells before, but those were made by human hands. This was alien biotech fused to a living body. He could not simply pull the wires free or patch the circuits. He needed a way to stabilize the energy without tearing her apart. He reached for a scanner he sometimes used on broken engines. It hummed as he passed it over the implants. The small screen showed waves of energy spiking irregularly. The implants were drawing too much power from her body, and if the cycle kept failing, it would overload. He let out a slow breath. This was worse than he feared. Behind him, the colony leader's voice echoed from outside, sharp and angry. "Tom! Get away from them! Do you want to bring fire on us all? Let them die." Tom ignored the words. He had made his choice. He set the scanner aside and pulled open a chest of tools. The clink of metal echoed as he gathered what little he could use: stabilizers, clamps, small energy dampers. His hands moved quickly, the same way they did when a miner's life depended on him repairing a suit before oxygen ran out. The mother dragon's breathing grew harsher. Sparks danced along her implants, scattering across the floor like tiny stars. She was weakening, her body fighting both injury and unstable tech. Tom looked at the hatchling. "I need you to keep her still. If she thrashes, I can't help her." The hatchling nodded with determination beyond her small frame. She pressed her claws against her mother and whispered again, soft and steady. The mother rumbled but stayed still, her eyes watching Tom with fierce suspicion. He placed a small damper against one glowing implant. The device buzzed and hissed as it tried to match the strange energy. For a moment it seemed to fail, then the blue glow steadied slightly. Tom felt a flicker of hope. "All right," he murmured. "That's something." But it was only the beginning. The implants ran deep, and some were hidden beneath torn scales. He would have to work slowly, carefully, using a mix of human tools and pure improvisation. Each adjustment drew a reaction: the mother's claws scraping the floor, her teeth flashing in warning, but she allowed him to continue, only because of the hatchling's calming presence. Minutes stretched into hours. Sweat dripped from Tom's brow as he worked, attaching stabilizers, rerouting energy through makeshift circuits, trying to balance what was never meant to be balanced. At one point, a surge of power jolted through the implants, knocking the damper loose and sending a spark across his arm. He bit down a cry and reset the device, refusing to back away. The hatchling looked at him with wide eyes. "You strong? You not run?" Tom almost smiled. He was not sure about strength, but he knew he could not walk out the door while they suffered. At last, the implants dimmed to a steadier glow. The energy was not fully stable, but the dangerous spikes had lessened. The mother's breathing eased slightly, though her eyes still burned with wild light. She was alive, though the threat was far from over. Tom sat back, exhausted but steady. "She will live. For now. But if I don't finish the repair, it won't last." The hatchling gave a quick nod, clutching her mother's snout with both claws. Relief shone in her face. She whispered to her mother, who gave a final growl before resting her head fully on the floor. Tom leaned against the wall, his tools scattered around him. He knew this was only the beginning. The implants were unstable and dangerous, and he had bought them time but not safety. Outside, the colony was silent, waiting in fear. Inside the workshop, a fragile trust had formed. Tom had not run, and because of that, the dragons had placed their hope in him. And though he would not admit it aloud, a strange thought stirred in his chest. Perhaps this was not just a repair job. Perhaps it was the first step towards something larger, something that could change how humans and dragons saw each other. Morning came slowly to the frontier colony. Sunlight crept through the cracks of Tom's workshop, falling across the floor where the great dragon lay. Her breathing was heavy but steadier than the night before. The faint glow of the implants pulsed with more rhythm now, though danger still lingered in every flicker. Tom rose from his chair, stiff from sleeping upright against the wall. His tools lay scattered where he had dropped them, and his arms still carried the sting of sparks from the night's work. The hatchling was curled against her mother's chest, sleeping lightly, though her small wings twitched as if she dreamed of flight. For a brief moment, Tom allowed himself a smile. He had bought them time. But he also knew time was not enough. If he did not finish the repair, the implants would fail again, and the explosion could tear apart not only the dragon but half the colony with her. He leaned closer to examine the largest implant, a jagged piece of alien metal fused into the mother's ribs. It pulsed irregularly, light flickering in uneven waves. His scanner showed unstable surges building again. His gut twisted. He needed better tools, tools he did not have. The sound of boots outside broke the silence. Angry voices rose, and soon the colony leader stood in the doorway with several armed settlers at his back. His face was hard, his eyes fixed on the dragons with open fear. "Tom," the leader said, "this cannot go on. You bring danger into our walls. That thing will kill us all when it loses control. Move aside. We will drive them out." The hatchling stirred at the sound, her eyes snapping open. She leapt to her feet, spreading her wings wide in front of her mother, hissing at the intruders. The mother's head lifted, a low growl building deep in her throat, rattling the tools on the shelves. Tom stepped quickly between them and the settlers. "Stop," he said firmly. "She's hurt, not hostile. If you force them out now, the implants will overload. You think you'll be safe, but you'll only bring disaster to the colony." The leader's jaw tightened. "And if you keep them here, what then? You gamble with our lives. These beasts are not our allies. They're monsters." Tom shook his head. "No. They're alive. They're more than what you fear. I can fix this, but I need time. If I fail, then blame me. But if I succeed, we may earn something greater than safety. We may earn trust." Murmurs spread among the settlers, some uneasy, others angry. The leader spat on the ground and motioned for his people to step back. "You take responsibility, Tom. If anything happens, their blood is on your hands. And so is ours." With that, they left, slamming the workshop doors behind them. The hatchling looked at Tom, her small chest heaving. "They hate us. They want us gone." Tom crouched down, meeting her eyes. "People fear what they don't understand. They see danger, not need. But I see you. I see your mother. You came here because you believed someone could help. I will not betray that." The hatchling studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Her fierce expression softened, and she pressed her claws lightly against his arm. "You are different. You stay." Tom turned back to the mother. Her eyes, burning with suspicion, followed him. She could not speak his language, but something in her gaze had changed. She no longer saw only an enemy, she saw a human who had not fled. He returned to his work. Every move had to be careful. He began adjusting the dampers, checking each implant in turn, but frustration gnawed at him. The tools he had were not enough to finish the repair. He would need special parts, conductors, stabilizers, things only found in the colony's supply store. Yet asking the colony for help would be nearly impossible. They already wanted the dragons gone. Still, he had no choice. He stood and faced the hatchling. "I must leave for a short while. Stay with your mother. Keep her calm. I will return." The hatchling tensed. "Humans outside, they hate us. They may hurt you." Tom smiled faintly. "I can handle them. Besides, I won't be gone long." Reluctantly, she nodded and settled back beside her mother. The great dragon rumbled, but did not stop him. When Tom stepped outside, the colony was tense. People stared from windows and doorways, whispering as he passed. Some shook their heads, others spat words of anger. But Tom walked on, steady and silent, until he reached the supply store. The keeper frowned when he asked for the parts. "Why do you need these, Tom?" "They're rare. Only used for high-energy engines." "You're not telling me you're still working on those things?" Tom met his gaze without flinching. "I am. And if I don't, the danger you fear will be real. Trust me. Let me do what I do best, fix what's broken." After a long pause, the keeper handed over the parts. "You'll regret this, Tom." "We all will." Tom carried the supplies back, his mind heavy but his steps firm. Inside the workshop, the hatchling rushed to him with relief. "You came back." He gave a small nod. "Of course I did." As he set down the new parts, the mother dragon shifted her head closer. Her eyes locked on him, and for the first time, her growl was not filled with rage. It sounded almost like a warning mixed with respect. Tom drew a breath. The challenge ahead was great, but he had chosen his path. The colony feared him now, the dragons depended on him, and the implants were still a ticking danger. This was no longer just a repair. It was a test not only of his skill as a mechanic but of his courage as a human willing to stand alone. The workshop grew heavy with silence. The mother dragon's chest rose and fell with a slow rhythm, but the unstable glow of her implants reminded Tom that the danger was far from gone. Every pulse of light was like a warning, a reminder that time was slipping away. Tom spread the new supplies across his workbench. Conductors, clamps, and energy stabilizers gleamed under the lamp. These were meant for ships and engines, not for a living creature. Still, they were all he had, and he would have to bend them to his purpose. The hatchling hovered close to her mother, her small claws resting gently against the great scales. She turned her head toward Tom, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. "You fix her now? You save her?" Tom nodded slowly. "I'll do what I can. But it will be hard. I need you to help me." The hatchling straightened, her small body trembling but steady. "I help. Tell me." Tom crouched by the mother's side again, examining the largest of the implants. It ran across her chest, half metal, half bone, fused so deeply that removing it would mean tearing her apart. That was not an option. Instead, he would need to build around it, stabilizing the flow of energy and easing the strain on her body. He pressed a stabilizer against the implant, adjusting the settings. The device buzzed and hissed as it tried to sync with the alien power. Sparks flared, and the mother jerked, her claws scraping the floor. A deep growl rumbled from her throat. The hatchling quickly climbed onto her mother's snout, pressing her forehead against the larger dragon. She whispered in her own tongue, her voice soft and steady. The growl lessened, though the mother's body still tensed with pain. Tom kept his hands steady. Good. Keep talking to her. She listens to you. The hatchling nodded without looking away from her mother. Her words poured out like a song, soothing the beast's rage. Slowly, the stabilizer's light shifted from red to green. The sparks faded, replaced by a steadier hum. Tom let out a breath he had been holding. One step done. Many more to go. He moved to another implant near her wing joint. This one was cracked, leaking faint blue light from a fracture in the metal. If left alone, it would spread until the entire piece failed. Tom used clamps and thin conductor lines, weaving them carefully around the fracture. Each move was precise, his fingers working with the focus of someone who knew a single mistake could cost everything. The hatchling watched with wide eyes. You build, you mend. You are like us. We call you Builder. Tom gave a small smile. Builder, huh? I'll take that. Hours passed as he worked. Sweat dripped from his forehead, and his hands grew numb from the effort. The air in the workshop grew thick with heat from both the tools and the dragon's body. The mother shifted often, growling, but she never struck. She allowed him to continue, though her eyes never stopped following his movements. At one point, a surge of energy raced through the implants, sending a shockwave that knocked tools off the bench. Tom staggered back, his heart pounding. The glow along the mother's chest flared bright and unstable. She's slipping, he muttered. He grabbed the largest stabilizer, one designed for a ship's reactor, and pressed it against the implant. The device whined loudly, struggling to balance the current. For a moment, it seemed it would overload, but then the light dimmed to a steady pulse. Tom sagged with relief. That was close. The hatchling looked at him with shining eyes. You strong? You not afraid? Tom shook his head. I am afraid. But I won't stop. The hatchling tilted her head. That is stronger than no fear. For a moment, Tom was silent. The little one's words struck him more deeply than he expected. She was right. Strength was not the absence of fear, it was standing firm in spite of it. As the night deepened, Tom made slow progress. The implants were still unstable, but each step brought them closer to safety. He built a network of conductors and clamps around the worst sections, creating a makeshift system to share the load of energy. It was not perfect, but it eased the strain on her body. When he finally stepped back, the glow of the implants was steadier than before. The mother's breathing, though heavy, was calmer. She lowered her head to the floor with a rumbling sigh. The hatchling pressed against Tom's side, her small wings trembling. She lives. She is better. You did it? Tom shook his head. Not yet. This is only a patch. It will not hold forever. I'll need to do more if I want it to last. The hatchling's face fell, but then she nodded firmly. Then we keep trying. We not give up. Tom placed a hand gently on her shoulder. No. We don't give up. Outside, the colony remained silent. No one dared approach the workshop. They waited, fearful of what might come. Tom knew they saw only danger, only risk. But he saw something else, a bond forming between himself and these dragons, a fragile trust that was worth every risk. He looked at the hatchling, then at the mother resting at last. He knew the hardest part was still to come. The implants were unstable, and the hunters who had caused this might not be far behind. But for now, in this moment, he had achieved something small but powerful. He had taken the first real step toward saving a life. The night had passed with uneasy quiet. The mother dragon rested on the floor of the workshop, her chest rising and falling more evenly now. The implants glowed in steady rhythm, no longer flaring wildly. Tom had worked until his body ached, patching together a fragile system to keep her alive. The hatchling stayed awake through much of it, whispering softly to her mother whenever the pain grew strong. Now the morning sun painted the colony in pale light. Tom stood at his bench, cleaning tools and planning the next steps. He knew the repairs would not hold forever. The implants were unstable, their design foreign and cruel. Whoever had done this to the dragon had not cared if she lived, only if she could be used. Tom rubbed his tired eyes. He had just begun preparing new circuits when the ground shook under his feet. This was not the heavy tread of the dragon mother shifting. It was something outside, approaching fast. The hatchling stiffened, her head snapping toward the door. Her small wings flared as if she sensed danger long before Tom did. Then came the sound, the low growl of engines. Several of them. Tom hurried to the window. Across the colony square, dust clouds rose as a group of armed ships rolled in. The hunters had come. Dark armored figures disembarked, carrying weapons that gleamed in the morning sun. Their leader shouted to the colony. "We know the beasts are here. Hand them over, and no harm will come to you." Fear spread through the streets. Colonists peeked from their homes, whispering anxiously. The colony leader stepped out, his voice loud but uneasy. "We want no trouble. The creatures are inside the mechanic's workshop. Take them and go." Tom's chest tightened. He had expected fear from the colony, but hearing them betray him so quickly still struck deep. The hatchling pressed close to him. "They come for her. They hurt her before. They take her again." Her voice shook but carried anger. "We fight. We not run." Tom looked at her small trembling form, then at the massive dragon mother still weakened on the floor. She could not fight in this state, not yet. If the hunters got inside, they would finish what they started. His mind raced. He had no army, no weapons fit for war. But he had machines, tools, and the will to stand. He set his jaw. "We'll fight. But we'll do it my way." He rushed to the storage shelves, pulling out crates of old parts. Power cells, mining charges, scrap plating, and engine coils. They were not weapons on their own, but in his hands, they could become traps. The hatchling followed him eagerly, her fear turning into determination. "Tell me. I help." Tom gave quick instructions. "Stack these coils by the doorway. If anyone forces their way in, they'll get a shock they won't forget. And bring me those power cells, I'll wire them into the floor plates." Together, they worked quickly. Tom's hands moved with practiced skill, turning spare parts into defenses. The hatchling, though small, carried pieces twice her size, her strength surprising even him. She moved with sharp focus, as if she understood every task mattered. Outside, the hunters advanced through the square. Their leader raised his voice again. "Step aside, humans. These creatures are ours. You know what happens if you resist." The colonists shrank back, silent. Some looked toward the workshop with guilt, others with relief that the hunters' wrath was not directed at them. Tom ignored their stares. He set the last charge and wiped the sweat from his brow. "That's it? It won't stop them forever, but it'll slow them down." The hatchling stood beside him, wings spread. "We are ready." A sudden crash shook the door. The hunters were trying to force their way inside. The mother dragon stirred, her eyes snapping open. A deep rumble filled the workshop, low and furious. She struggled to rise, but her body still trembled with weakness. Tom placed a hand on her snout. Not yet. Save your strength. Trust me. The mother's blazing eyes locked on him. For a moment, she seemed ready to defy him, but then she lowered her head again. Her trust was not complete, but she obeyed. The door shuddered under another blow. The metal hinges strained. Then, with a deafening crash, it burst open. Hunters stormed inside, weapons raised. Tom pressed a switch. The coils by the doorway flared to life, releasing a crackling wave of energy. The first hunters through the door convulsed as electricity surged through their armor, dropping them to the ground. The hatchling leapt forward, slashing with her claws at another intruder. She was small, but her strike knocked the weapon from his hand. Tom swung a heavy tool, striking another across the helmet, sending him sprawling. The hunters regrouped quickly, shouting orders. More pressed into the workshop, weapons sparking. But the traps Tom had set slowed them. Power cells exploded at their feet, sending them diving for cover, while improvised smoke bombs filled the air with choking haze. Through the chaos, the mother dragon lifted her head high, her chest glowing with both fury and unstable energy. She released a roar that shook the walls. The sound froze the hunters for a heartbeat, fear flashing in their eyes. Tom stood beside the hatchling, breathing hard, his hands raw from the fight. "We hold the line," he told her. The hatchling growled fiercely, her small body trembling with both fear and pride. "We hold." Outside, more engines rumbled. The hunters had not come with just a few men. They had come with an army. And Tom knew the real battle had only just begun. The workshop shook as the hunters pressed harder, their weapons sparking and cutting through the smoke. Tom's traps had slowed them, but he knew they would soon regroup. The mother dragon lay low, her chest still glowing with unstable energy, but her eyes burned with growing determination. The hatchling pressed close to her mother, her small claws gripping the floor, ready to defend what was hers. Tom wiped sweat from his brow and took a deep breath. "We have to work together. If we stay apart, they'll overwhelm us." The hatchling looked up at him, eyes wide. "We together. We strong." Tom nodded. "Exactly. Stay close and do exactly what I say." He dashed to the workbench and grabbed a spool of wire and several more power cells. Quickly, he connected them to his improvised floor plates and metal conduits running along the walls. Sparks flew, but he kept moving, carefully adjusting the flow of energy so the charges would not harm the dragons. The first group of hunters had finally recovered and tried to push forward. Tom pressed a switch. Electricity arced along the floor, forcing them back with shocked cries. The mother dragon let out a deafening roar. The vibrations rattled tools from the shelves and sent sparks flying. The hunters hesitated. That was the moment the hatchling seized. She darted between their legs, small but fast, clawing and striking with precision. One hunter tripped and fell, and the others shouted, trying to catch her, but she disappeared behind a stack of crates, only to reappear moments later. Tom swung a heavy metal rod at the nearest hunter, knocking the weapon from his hand. The energy plates beneath his feet flared, sending another group back against the walls. His heart pounded, but he did not falter. He had learned long ago that fear was useless in these moments. Only action mattered. The mother dragon slowly rose to her feet, staggering at first, then steadying herself. Her wings spread wide, filling the room with shadow. The implants along her chest pulsed in rhythm with her breathing, dangerous yet powerful. She had grown strong enough now to fight not blindly, but with controlled fury. With a sharp inhale, she exhaled a wave of heat and energy. The hunters staggered back, some thrown against the walls. Sparks flew from their weapons as the blast hit, and several dropped to the floor, coughing and shielding themselves. Tom and the hatchling took the opportunity to move closer, working together to protect the remaining traps. The hatchling whispered to her mother, guiding her through each move, and the mother obeyed, directing her power with precision. The hunters regrouped again, more determined than before. They advanced slowly, wary now of both the dragons and the human mechanic who refused to yield. Tom adjusted the final set of conduits, connecting them to a heavy generator. The hum of energy filled the workshop, ready to activate at his command. "Stay back!" Tom shouted. "This ends now." The mother dragon crouched low, wings tucked slightly, ready to strike. The hatchling pressed against her side, whispering encouragement in her small, melodic voice. The hunters charged forward, shouting, but Tom flipped the switch. A surge of controlled energy spread through the floor and walls. Sparks danced, electric arcs shot through the air, and the hunters were thrown to the ground again, their weapons useless. The mother dragon lunged forward, knocking the nearest hunters aside with a sweep of her tail. Her claws struck with precision, not recklessly, sending them retreating in terror. The hatchling darted between the enemies, slashing and diving, protecting her mother while guiding the humans away. Her bravery was fierce, her speed unmatched. Even the experienced hunters struggled to catch her. One by one, the remaining hunters stumbled back, defeated by the combined efforts of the human mechanic and the two dragons. Fear was finally visible in their eyes. The mother dragon let out a long, low growl, warning them never to return. Tom stood beside the hatchling, his hands shaking but steady, watching as the enemies fled toward their ships and disappeared into the distance. The workshop was filled with smoke, sparks, and the hum of dying energy. Tom leaned heavily against the workbench, exhausted but alive. The hatchling pressed against his side, her tiny claws clinging to him. "You did it," she whispered. Tom shook his head. "No. We did it. Together." The mother dragon lowered her head, eyes glowing softly now. Her breathing was slower, steadier. She looked at Tom, then at her hatchling, and then back at him. There was understanding in her gaze, respect born from trust and shared danger. For the first time, the workshop felt safe. The colony had watched in silence, some in awe, others in disbelief. They had feared these creatures, but now they saw what a human could do when he refused to run, and what trust could achieve between species. The hatchling rested against her mother, finally allowing herself to relax. Tom sat down, rubbing his tired arms. He knew the implants were still fragile, but for now, the threat had passed. He had faced the hunters, survived, and proved that humans could stand alongside creatures many thought were monsters. Outside, the colony slowly came to life again. Windows opened, voices whispered, and cautious eyes peeked toward the workshop. But inside, a bond had formed. A bond between a human mechanic, a young hatchling, and a feral dragon who had learned what trust could bring. Tom realized something in that moment. This was more than repair work. More than survival. It was a beginning. Together, they had stood against impossible odds, and together, they had won. The workshop was quiet again. Dust settled on the floor and the scattered tools glinted faintly in the morning sunlight. The air still carried the scent of smoke and electricity from the previous day's fight, but the danger had passed. Tom leaned against the bench, exhausted, but his heart felt lighter. The hatchling clung to her mother's side, wings slightly open, still alert but calmer now. She looked up at Tom with wide, shining eyes. She is safe. You saved her. Tom shook his head with a small smile. No. You helped too. We all did it together. The mother dragon lowered her head slowly. Her glowing eyes met Tom's, and in them he saw something he had not expected: respect. She had been wild, fierce, and untrusting, yet now she allowed him near without fear. She moved only when he needed to inspect her implants, cooperating in a way that showed the bond between them had grown. The colony began to stir outside. People peeked from windows and doors, whispering among themselves. Some looked ashamed for having doubted Tom, while others simply watched in awe at what had just happened. For the first time, they saw not a monster in the dragons, but life intelligent, powerful, and deserving of care. Tom walked carefully to the mother dragon, checking the stabilizers on her implants. He adjusted a clamp here, repositioned a conductor there, all the while speaking softly. Better now. You rest. The rest will hold for a while. The hatchling pressed her small body against Tom's leg. You are our friend. You stay. Tom smiled and crouched down to meet her eyes. Yes. I stay. As long as you need me. The mother dragon gave a low rumble, almost like a sigh of relief. She lowered herself fully to the floor and nudged the hatchling gently. It was a gesture of gratitude, one that made the small dragon chirp happily. Tom could not help but feel a warmth in his chest. Days passed, and life in the workshop settled into a careful rhythm. Tom worked on the implants bit by bit, improving the stabilizers and reinforcing them with the materials he could find. Each day, the mother dragon grew stronger, able to shift more easily and even stretch her wings without pain. The hatchling stayed by Tom's side, learning from him. She carried small tools, handed him parts, and whispered encouragements to her mother. Her bravery had not diminished, if anything, it had grown. Together, they formed a quiet but powerful family. One afternoon, the colony leader came to the workshop. He approached slowly, hands raised in peace. Tom, I owe you thanks, he said. I was wrong to doubt you. They are not monsters, and you are more than a mechanic. You saved lives today. Tom nodded quietly. I only did what I could. They needed someone who would not run. That is all. The leader looked at the mother dragon and the hatchling, then back at Tom. Perhaps the colony can learn something from you. Perhaps we can do better. Tom smiled faintly. It is not too late. We can all try. That evening, Tom stepped outside with the hatchling. She climbed onto his shoulder, tiny claws gripping gently, and looked toward the horizon. Her mother stood nearby, wings partially spread, chest rising and falling steadily. Tom felt a sense of calm he had not known in a long time. You saved her life, the hatchling said softly. And you saved me too. Tom ruffled her small head gently. No. You saved me too. You showed me courage I did not know I had. The mother dragon rumbled beside them, almost like laughter. She nudged the hatchling toward Tom, reminding them both that they were now a team. A strange, unlikely team, but one bound by trust, courage, and shared struggle. News of the workshop's defense spread quickly through the colony. Stories of a human mechanic who stood against hunters and helped alien dragons traveled from house to house. Children whispered about the dragons, imagining their scales glowing and wings flaring in the sunlight. Adults reconsidered their fears, seeing proof that strength was not measured only by weapons, but by courage and compassion. In the following weeks, the mother dragon regained her strength completely. She no longer needed Tom's constant attention, but she stayed nearby, keeping watch over the workshop and her hatchling. The hatchling, of course, never left Tom's side, always curious, always ready to learn, always loyal. Tom realized he had gained more than he had expected. He had found companions, friends who trusted him without question, and whom he would protect at all costs. The fear and doubt of the colony no longer mattered as much. What mattered was this bond he had built, fragile yet unbreakable. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom stood at the edge of the workshop and watched the mother dragon stretch her wings. The hatchling chirped excitedly beside him, flapping her tiny wings in imitation. Tom laughed softly. He had never thought he would feel at home among dragons, yet here he was, and it felt right. "You trust me," he said to the mother dragon. Her eyes met his. Slowly, she lowered her head in acknowledgement. It was a simple gesture, but it said everything words could not. The hatchling pressed closer to him. "We always together now," she said. Tom nodded. Always. And for the first time, he believed it. The human mechanic, the feral dragon, and her hatchling had faced danger, fear, and the unknown together. They had survived. They had trusted. They had won. Outside, the colony watched quietly, learning that courage and kindness could bridge worlds. Inside, the three companions rested, safe at last, their bond stronger than anything the frontier could throw at them. For Tom, the workshop was no longer just a place to fix machines. It was a place where life, trust, and courage had come together, proving that even in the edge of human space, humans and dragons could stand side by side. And together, they looked toward the future, ready for whatever came next.